are the totals for the 1941 year start sequence. In Russia, the Axis attritioned. Germany appears to be looking at the southern part of the front for its summer 1941 offensive, but it has a lot of options depending on how Russia defends. The Axis defended in the west. The Western Allies obtained Belgian association, allowing them to open a new front at no U.S. Axis tension cost. The Axis could have prevented this by rolling for Belgium in either of the previous 2 years. In an important development, Anglo-French cooperation restrictions were also lifted. The situation in southern Italy wasn't much better, as the British exploited through the weaker Italians and isolated the Axis units on the west coast of Italy. The Axis troubles didn't end there. Russia thickened its line everywhere, but also attacked in the south. Sea supply to Sevastopol allowed the Russian infantry in the Crimea to move north, while an inexpensive armor breakthrough further north isolated a second pocket of German units. It would be surprising if Germany can advance in this area, although the encircled units are in no danger of being lost. Russia still has 13 Army air factors unbuilt, but otherwise is nearly fully built. Here are the BRP and tension levels at the end of spring 1941. In planning its summer 1941 attack, Germany decided to try to surround every Russian unit in the northern half of the front. This would take advantage of a potential flaw in Russia's northern defenses. Russia didn't have any one-factor infantry units in reserve to attrition-exploiting German armor. For some reason, failing to have a reserve didn't make the top 10 list of tactical mistakes, although it probably should have. However, to execute its ambitious plan, Germany needed to make 2-to-1 attacks against Russian units in hexes D51, E51, and I51, as well as 2-to-1 exploitation attacks against Russian 3-5 armor units in F54 and K51. This disregarded the second most important top 10 tactic, to make safe 2.5-to-1 attacks wherever possible. But with a 4-6 armor unit, 8 Army air factors, and a significant number of 3-3 infantry units defending in Italy, an attack of this scope could not be carried out without risk. Germany rolled well for its regular combat attacks, but it couldn't beat the odds during exploitation, where the attack on F54 failed. 3 Russian 3-5 armor units escaped the net. It is difficult to know how to characterize the German attack, and any assessment of it can't be based on the actual die rolls. In Italy, Germany took out a British 4-5 armor unit in a 1-to-1 attack and regrouped to try to defend Rome. Britain and France consolidated, with Britain rebuilding 7 Army air factors and its 4-5 armor unit, 7 Western Allied armor units, and 20 Army air factors assembled on the Western Front. Russia spent 14 BRPs on low-odds attacks to allow some of its encircled units to be rebuilt at normal cost, attrition, and sacrificed 2 armor units to isolate 4 of the most advanced German armor units. Russia ended the turn with 81 BRPs of unbuilt units. The Russian resistance level dropped to 0, which didn't cost Russia any units, but did mean that Russia's economy will grow by only 5 BRPs in fall 1941. Here are the BRP and tension levels at the end of summer 1941. Russia is down to 41 BRPs. Germany attacks in the east, taking Stalingrad and encircling a small number of Russian units. However, the Russian front is overshadowed by developments in the west, where Germany failed to correctly assess the Western Allied threat. The Western Allies declare war on the Netherlands, create a breakthrough in Wilhelmshaven with a 3-to-1 attack, and French armor fans out across northern Germany, exploiting next to Berlin. As an aside, normally the loss of Germany's remaining Western Front ports would stop the German submarine campaign in the Atlantic, but this was already abandoned in 1940 as a lost cause. The Axis mistake is both instructive and sad, as the disaster, Berlin will fall to the French in winter 1941, could have been avoided in many different ways, some of which are covered in the video Top 10 Tactical Mistakes. The first mistake was that Germany didn't have any armor backing up its line in the north. This was listed as the third worst tactical mistake. A single armor unit 2 hexes west of Berlin would have blunted the Western Allied exploitation. Germany can't argue that no armor was available, because an Italian armor unit had been assigned to anti-partisan duties in the Pripet marshes. It's also worth pointing out that, since the Western Allied combat training level is still 1, German infantry would have defended with a DM of 2 against exploiting Western Allied armor. The second mistake was that Berlin, the most important hex on the board, was left undefended with no units in reserve. Even a single 1-3 infantry unit in or near Berlin could force the French armor unit west of Berlin to retreat on an attrition, for which Germany would have had a very favorable positive modifier because of its higher winter preparation level. The third mistake, which is related to the second, is that Berlin is also unfortified, so the French zone of control stops Germany from building units in it, leaving it undefended in winter 1941. But there are more counts on the indictment. Germany had almost 2 years to fortify Essen and Cologne, which would have both strengthened those hexes and given Germany more maneuverability in the face of the Western Allied attack, because those hexes would have been immune from enemy zones of control. In addition, using only the forces available on the Western Front in fall 1941, Germany could have preempted the Western Allied attack by declaring war on the Netherlands and taking both the Hague and the most eastern hex of Belgium at 3-to-1 odds or greater. This would have blocked the advance in the north and given Germany a second line behind the Rhine. There was no drama in the east as Russia attritions. Because of the loss of Stalingrad, the Russian resistance level dropped to -2, costing it 40 BRPs of units. Germany is finally getting somewhere, but it looks like it's too late. Here are the BRP and tension levels at the end of fall 1941. The winter roll in Russia was a 5, but Germany's winter preparation level was high enough that it was still able to attack effectively. In yet another nerve-wracking 2-to-1 attack, an initial combat roll of 1 was followed by a 5 in the second round, Germany captured the industrial center in Rostov. In the west, Germany made a very risky 1-to-1 attack against a French armor unit, instead of simply attritioning. But this time Germany was lucky and the attack succeeded. Still, Berlin could not be defended. Japan attacked in the Pacific, and while we won't cover the Pacific theater in detail, there were several notable developments. The first was that the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor was very successful. Japan caught the Enterprise, Saratoga, and Yorktown in port and sank all 3 of them. The second is that Japan also declared war on Russia and took Vladivostok. This came at a price. The normal list of Japanese targets had to be radically shortened. Japan didn't attack Burma or Malaya, leaving the British position in Southeast Asia intact. The end result was a very unusual position at the end of the Japanese winter 1941 Plehreturn. The focus in the West was now in Germany, where the Western Allies added insult to injury by not only taking Berlin, which was undefended, but also taking Essen on a 2-to-1 attack without loss. Russia attritioned, stabilizing the front. With the loss of Rostov, the Russian resistance level dropped to -3, removing another 20 BRPs of Russian units from the Russian force pool. Given the crisis in the West, this should be Russia's low point. Here are the BRP and tension levels at the end of winter 1941. A number of major powers ended with deficits, especially Japan. The US is likely to enter the war in Europe sometime in the next few turns. Be sure to subscribe to the new A World at War 2024 channel to keep getting videos like those on the original A World at War channel.